everyone, and welcome back to DSACO Up for Discussion, the podcast where we empower, educate, and enhance communities through conversations that matter. I'm Sarah Sewell, the Executive Director for DSACO, and today we're talking about an organization that works every day to support and protect children and families in our community. So joining us today is Mr. Joe Dorman. Thank you for being here, from the Institute for Child Advocacy, talking about the mission behind the organization, the work that's being done to advocate for children, and how families and communities can get involved in supporting these important efforts. So, Joe, thank you for being with us today.
It's my pleasure.
We're so excited to have you. But before we jump into today's conversation, I want to share an exciting event that's coming up. Mark your calendars for the Down Syndrome Festival and 5K. It's going to take place on Saturday, September 26th at the Myriad Botanical Gardens. You can join us for our morning full of community celebration, awareness, and fun, including our 5K and 1 mile fun run, the awareness walk, activities, vendors, food trucks, entertainment, and so much more. Registration is now open. We would love for you guys to join us. For more information, you can visit dsfestivaland5k.com and register to become a sponsor, a volunteer, or just to learn more. So now let's dive into Joe. So for the listener out there, Joe, just tell us a little bit about the Institute for Child Advocacy and what work you're doing there.
So the Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy is a statewide nonprofit. We were founded in 1983 as a result of a lawsuit against the state of Oklahoma. Back then, we had one omnibus children's agency that was under umbrella of DHS.
Okay.
And the conditions that children faced, especially in the juvenile affairs portion of that, it was horrific.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great book I would encourage people to read that's published by Oklahoma Hall of Fame Publishing called Throwaway Kids.
Oh.
It goes into the history of what was happening to the children. But essentially, the director of DHS was currying political favor from lawmakers by hiring people that they would send to him, and these people weren't qualified, and in fact, many of them were very bad people, and they were allowed to run wild in these systems, and the result was far too many of these kids sustained trauma and events that were far worse than what led them into the juvenile affairs system. One of our board members, Laura Choate, was one of the 7 teenage plaintiffs on that original lawsuit. And so these teenagers were brought together by Stephen Novick, an attorney with Legal Aid of Western Oklahoma, and they filed a lawsuit to take on what was arguably the most powerful person in the state of Oklahoma with the DHS director.
Wow.
From that legal action and then the resulting press coverage, many changes did occur, but it took about a decade, unfortunately, for the things to happen that truly needed to happen, and we've had several lawsuits since then.
Wow.
And you can't say it would never happen again, because the same thing happened in Tulsa just a couple of years ago in their juvenile detention center. And so we have to remain vigilant. That is why advocates at the time decided there not only needed to be a watchdog organization created within government, the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth, but there needed to be a nonprofit outside of government that wouldn't be constrained to raise awareness and take action on policy to make sure the kids have the best opportunities in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. That's a lot. And I know the Oklahoma Shame Report was really what prompted the Institute to be established, which was incredible. And just kind of explaining a little bit about what child advocacy really means to you, why it's so important in Oklahoma.
It's individuals raising their voice, hopefully collectively, about a problem that children face in the state. And our mission is very broad-based. If there is a policy out there that impacts children, we work on that to try and train advocates on how to use their voices effectively, and work with organizations like yours to raise awareness at the Capitol with lawmakers to make sure that the bills that they file and pass into law will not do harm to organizations and will truly act in the best interest of children.
And I know last year we were supportive of the corporal punishment law that actually finally passed after several years, so that parents have at least are aware that it's happening, because there was no even consent there, and then all the corporal punishment things that could happen in the classroom, which was shocking that was on that list, because slapping was one of them.
it was scary what was actually in the law. You could slap, you could hit. There were multiple different restraints, which was one of the problems with the original issues that created OICA. So this law had been on the books for a while, and basically it said only the most severe of conditions you couldn't implement corporal punishment.
Yes.
We worked over 3 years to get the law changed to it's children who fall under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And so those children are now free from the practice of corporal punishment. Corporal punishment still happens in schools. In fact, about 80 of the school districts in the state fully admitted at the time they used corporal punishment on children with special needs.
Yes.
And now we have about a quarter of the school districts, mostly in the rural areas, still use corporal punishment at all. But it's changing.
Wow. Yeah, I know. And to me, it's a little heartbreaking. I mean, my daughter with Down syndrome, I can't imagine someone slapping her. But I think what I got so hung up on was they didn't have to notify me as a parent. They could just do this without knowing. But we're going to talk about this later, but that's why we have teamed up with the Autism Foundation to do a communication conference to talk about behaviors. And I think it's opened some people's eyes. So we're still trying to change that and move the needle a little further. But what about why did you decide to do this? Why did you decide to take on this role?
So going back with me, I grew up in a small town, Rush Springs, Oklahoma. Grew up poor. My dad was disabled by a truck accident. Mom had to quit her job to be at home to help with him and then also be there with me.
Yeah.
And she never went back to work until after I had graduated. And having that opportunity to grow up in that type of setting, I think truly benefited me. My parents were older. My dad was 45. Mom was 35 when I was born. And so I had a unique childhood and developed an interest in politics when I was at a younger age. I had the chance to page for the state senate. So any of your listeners, if you have high school juniors or seniors, check out the page program. Contact lawmakers, and they get to go to the Capitol for a week and work for lawmakers and learn the process and experience that. And that had a profound impact on me. So I majored in political science at Oklahoma State. And my first job out of the Capitol was working in the mailroom for the House of Representatives. So I'm that guy
But you saw a lot there.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing down there at the lowest rung on the ladder, what you see. So I'm that guy that started in the mailroom and worked my way up.
That's awesome.
Had several different roles on staff, worked in D.C. for a year, and then had the chance to run for representative in 2002, served 12 years, ran for governor, made a lot of friends along the campaign trail. And my predecessor at OICA, Terry Smith, had decided to leave his job and go back to work at the Office of Juvenile Affairs. And he called me and said, I think this would be a great job for you. And so I applied, got the job September 2016, and we'll soon be celebrating my 10th anniversary there.
That's awesome. I didn't realize you'd been there for almost 10 years. That's awesome. I've been here just a little over 8, so I got some catching up to do with you. But you've had a plethora of expertise. So along your journey in this political arena, what kind of stands out the most as far as child advocacy for you, and maybe relating people with disabilities?
So one of the biggest things was having been a lawmaker and now working on this side to educate lawmakers about policies. It made me reflect on how little I knew before and why it's so important for advocates to develop that connection with their policymakers so they can share their lived experiences and the stories with them so they better understand. Lawmakers are expected to come to the Capitol and immediately become an expert on the filed 4,000 bills at the beginning of a legislative session. And you can't do that. You have to have those individuals out there that can share stories so you better understand the impact of what these laws will have on people. And so through the time that I've been at OICA, it's really driven me more to make sure that we educate policymakers and in turn train advocates on how to effectively use their voice, because when it gets down to the actions of advocacy versus activism, advocacy is a long method of educating somebody and winning them over to a side. activism is an immediate desire for change, and it's usually not effective. But you have to have both in the process to truly communicate the message.
So, if our families are listening out there, they need to make friends with their legislators and let them know about their children, because there are a lot of things that affect. I know something that's kind of right on the cusp is Medicaid. If that's going to be funded this year, do you have any insight on the secrets of what's happening with Medicaid?
So a few years ago, Oklahomans voted on a state question to put Medicaid expansion into our Constitution. We're one of 3 states that did that, and that requires the legislature to put the funding in for the expansion, the additional people who would qualify under the guidelines. And it's helped about 200,000 Oklahomans who make so little but are in the workforce. It allows them to qualify for that state-supported and federally supported insurance program. That impacts a lot of individuals and certainly their families, especially families with special needs, because oftentimes they fall into that economic gap where they need sooner care for children or adult Medicaid for themselves. And it's so important to make sure you have insurance, because too often people are bankrupted by medical bills.
Well, and our kids see, 5 to 6 specialists on average, with their complex medical issues. I mean, I can attest to that. And then there's the waiver, which they fully funded it a few years ago, which was awesome. And now we're really a no wait list state, which we are so thankful for. But I've heard that might be something that could be on the chopping block, because it's not in the Constitution. It's just something that is a supplement to, for families with special needs. And I know a lot of our families have, are appreciative of the waiver, and it helps with a lot of respite time for them. But any insight you have on that?
We're certainly hoping nothing happens with the waiver. We are working to make sure nothing does happen with the waiver. As a lawmaker, back then, it was a 7-year wait list. And after my time, it kept growing to the point where the waiver was on a 13-year wait list. So if you enter your child at 8 years old, they wouldn't qualify for the waiver until they were 21 years old.
Correct.
And then they moved to another list, and you start over. And so it felt like an endless cycle for families. So we're very thankful that lawmakers and the governor did work to end the wait list. And it would be a tragedy if something were to happen to that. We've grown so much as a state in some of those right areas. We can't afford to backpedal.
And the thing about with the waiver that we've learned, and we've had to educate our families and help the developmental disabilities services, because for so long because the wait lists were so long, they were treating adults. So there were all these adult programs. Well, now we have 3-year-olds coming off the wait list, which is phenomenal. And they were like, can you help us navigate through this? Like, what are appropriate services for a 3-year-old? And so we have actually worked really closely with them to help them navigate that and train the case managers and educate them on, yes, that's an appropriate program, or that would work, and then help our families figure out what vendors they could use and things like that for their child to do these community-based waiver programs. Dance classes and piano lessons or tennis lessons. Those are all great things. So we've worked with our vendors too. We have asked that they come to the festival and they can share who they're supporting as well. But yeah, the waiver's a big thing for us. We're really, really, really thankful for that. But
and just to add on to that, the waiver, Medicaid, so many different programs are available out there. And I would encourage individuals, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
There are far too many Oklahomans that view this as a handout, and they shouldn't. It's a government service set up to try and help you navigate the system and succeed at life. So many of these programs are set up to allow you to go back into the workforce.
Yep.
And that's the goal. We're
absolutely
providing government dollars to allow you to be able to enter the workforce again and be able to provide for your families. And when you don't apply for those programs, you're really denying yourself those rights.
We tell our families that all the time. It's not a handout, it's a hand up. And, this is allowing you to have some respite time too. It provides those services. But it's also, like, for instance, my daughter, it's getting her out in the community to do things, and she's gaining independency skills on that. And I want her to become a tax-paying citizen. So that's the end goal. And if we don't set those things up early on, how is she going to be able to develop and to do those things? So, I mean, it's been a huge, great blessing for us, and we're really thankful for it. But on the other end, we don't want it cut by any means, or even go back to, like you said, go back to where we're not a no wait list state. There still is a little bit of a wait. It's about 18 months, but it's just a lot of paperwork. But still, we tell families to go ahead and apply when their child is at least 2. Mm-hmm. And then those services should be available when they're about 3 years old to come off and get situated. But just the overall respite help is really nice. And then, like you said, we've had many parents who've been able to go back into the workforce because they have the extra help and support. Hey, that's a win for everybody in my books.
Completely agree. And we're in a precarious situation financially, caused partly by the federal government. When Congress passed and the president signed the One Big Beautiful Bill into law into action, the parameters of that did scale back some funding elements. A lot of those will go into effect FY27, which will be next year. And so we really won't see the impact of those, but they're shifting the cost to the states rather than the feds paying, say, a 90-10 split.
Yeah.
It may be a 70-30 split. Now, when the feds do that, and it's good to reduce the deficit and the debt, but they're just passing the buck on to the states. And in Oklahoma, where it's difficult to raise taxes and there's not a willingness to raise taxes to cover those benefits, that's where oftentimes we see people lose those services because lawmakers do have to make tough decisions.
Yeah.
And I was out there. I understand having to make those tough calls on state agencies and the programs they operate. But with this, it could cause state lawmakers to have to make some really tough decisions. And so that's...
We need to start advocating now, probably. And, well, if we can ever team up and help you, you let me know, because we'll have families lined up ready to go, including myself.
Absolutely. And I want to encourage your listeners, if you're not registered to vote, you need to get registered to vote. You need to do your homework. I would say don't base your opinion just on political party or ads that we're seeing so many of in campaign season. Do your research and find out. We had talked about Senator Mullen earlier. No, there are a lot of people that don't realize that he's a foster parent. He was chair of the Foster Parents Caucus. He actually ran legislation dealing with foster care benefits. And so for people that don't do the research and know the work there, they don't realize that you have some allies sometimes out there. You just can't make the assumption someone is against you just because they're in a political party.
And when he was in the Senate, he actually joined the Down syndrome task force. So he was a great, and he grew up with somebody with Down syndrome. So he was always great to meet with us on the national level to talk about funding for NIH. So yeah, you're totally right. I agree. I don't think you should vote on the political party. You should vote for the person. And that's what I would encourage everybody to do too, especially when these big issues are coming up about how to support our children in the state of Oklahoma, and something so sensitive as health care. Like, our kids don't have health care in the disability community. That's vital to their livelihood. That's critical to a critical need. So we sure will be looking to you for some guidance there. But what other legislative items have came up this legislative session that you'd like to share with the listener about? Because I know, like, the child marriage bill, if you want to share any more about that, and then really just anything else that's came up that's important and we should know about.
So the lawmakers have one constitutional requirement spelled out in the Oklahoma Constitution that they must complete, and that's doing an annual budget. And so they did complete their budget by April 1st, their budget agreement, and then passed it soon after. And they still went on for about 5 weeks, 6 weeks, working on different policy bills. Under the budget, there were some great wins for children. We were happy to see some programs that were funded. One example was a grant program for programs that offer services to foster youth, raising the age benefit qualification from 18 to 21. And so if these students are in school or a workforce program, are under the care of an organization that provides housing, it gives them that additional opportunity before they would age out to adjust to life.
Nice.
It's wonderful for college students, wonderful for those in career tech or in the workforce. And so that was a big win. We really are appreciative of President Pro Tem of the Senate, Lonnie Paxton, for running that bill. You had mentioned the child marriage bill.
Yeah.
Senate Bill 504 that was authored by Senator Warren Hamilton and Representative Nicole Miller raised the legal age to get married in Oklahoma to age 18. And it was controversial in the House of Representatives because some people felt like minors should still have that opportunity to get married with parental consent. And the argument, of course, there was too many instances of this lead to an issue where parents might be selling their children into a form of bondage and slavery to an older person. We have Romeo and Juliet laws in Oklahoma where you cannot have consensual sex with somebody if you're under the age of 16, and you have to be within 2 years if you're under the age of 18. But with marriage, we didn't have a minimum. Children could get married with parental consent at any age.
Really? I had no idea that was the case.
We were one of the few states that allowed that. And since 2017, this has really become a movement. Before 2017, no state had the requirement on age 18. Since then, we've become, I believe we're the 17th state now to ban marriage under the age of 18 with no exceptions. And so there are still some people that are raising concerns about this, but it's now the law. It goes into effect November 1st.
The governor has signed it, I guess.
The governor allowed this to become law without signature.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So in Oklahoma, you have different ways that bills can become law with the governor. You can either sign it, you can veto it. If you're in the legislative session up until last week, if the governor doesn't take action on a bill, it's considered pocket passage. If it's in the final week of the legislature, the governor can sit on it for 15 days to decide what to do. And if the governor doesn't take action, then it's pocket veto. But the governor decided to allow this one to become law without a signature.
Gosh, there's so many rules. How do you keep up? Like, I'm just fascinated by all that. But at the same time, I'm like, God, there's so many things. There's so many moving parts. And it actually takes a long time to get a bill written and enact and then gone through all the committees. I mean, it took us 3 years for the corporal punishment, but I know there are some that just sit there for years. But go on. What else? What other legislative action has taken place this year?
I've literally spent my entire adult life surrounded by the process. This was my 34th year to work in the Capitol building, either directly or indirectly through policy. And so I'm one of those students of the process. I'm a political hack and a policy nerd. So it's the best of both worlds.
That's the best. Yeah.
With some of these other bills that went through, we had a lot of lawmakers that really took some great ideas. We had one actually touch on one that didn't make it across the finish line. Representative Nick Archer filed legislation to raise the allotment by $5 for children in foster care, for those families to provide support. We're operating at roughly $17.70 per day per foster child. And you as a parent, I'm sure you're doing the math.
That doesn't cover a meal.
It barely covers the meal on the day and not the extra expenses. So a lot of people say people get into foster care because they're trying to make money.
No.
The reality is they are volunteering their homes and that time to act as a surrogate while that child is enduring the most traumatic experience of their life.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of good foster parents out there, and Representative Archer recognized we haven't raised that price in almost a decade.
Oh, wow.
And so he tried to raise that. But with the budget issues and what's on the horizon for what could happen at the federal level,
it didn't make it.
It didn't make it. So we're really hoping that will have a chance.
This next session.
Yeah. And then we're waiting on to see what's going to happen with some of the other bills that didn't fail. Right now is the time when lawmakers are considering a summer study. It's called an interim study, where they officially make a request to the leadership to look at an issue, and they might file a bill from that, or it may be a law that recently passed to see if it's successful. They'll do an official study on that. And so over the summer, interim studies usually begin late July and run through October, November, where they will look at an issue. And so lawmakers are looking for ideas right now. And so we're working with some of the lawmakers to look at some of the bills that didn't pass and see on some of the successes.
Wow. Gosh, you guys do so much, and you're so appreciative of that. But, what are some of the ways that our families could, help you or support you or recognize what you do?
So I would first suggest people go to our website, which is oica.org. We have a link where they can sign up for our weekly newsletter. We provide a free newsletter every Thursday at 2 o'clock for individuals to read through news articles of what's happening. I write a weekly column that's published in several newspapers around the state, and we have the digital copy there. We have a policy synopsis by our policy director, Greg Sawyer, to look at what's occurring at the Capitol. During session, it's about the bills. In the interim, it's about the interim studies. And then as we get towards the end of the year, we have a fall policy conference called Fall Forum. It's open for anybody to attend and share their ideas of what they think should be a law that would benefit children. And so we gather 2 days virtually, 2 days in person to look at these different concepts and try and formulate a legislative agenda, and then take that agenda to lawmakers to request that they file bills to change the law and improve conditions based on what these advocates desire.
We had a couple of families who have actually, gone through the process. There's Everett's Law, which isn't, no one can be discriminated against at any kind of transplant if you're a person with a disability. And then the other is Courtney's Law, that if you get a diagnosis of Down syndrome, you're to reach out to the health department to get more information before you decide if you want to terminate the pregnancy. And we've gotten a few calls about, just people requesting that from doctors. So obviously it's out there and they know. And, Everett's Law with the transplant was something that I think was discussed nationwide as well. And then I don't know how many states are actually doing that, but you think, oh, everybody should deserve to have some kind of organ transplant. Why would it be discriminatory if they have Down syndrome? But it happens. And so I applaud our families for being proactive in that regard and, thinking forward, like, this could happen here. Let's make sure it doesn't happen to our families and our loved ones, because their life matters just as much as everyone else. We always say, here, we have a saying around here, we want to take care of them inside the womb and outside of the womb, because we serve families from that prenatal diagnosis all the way through the lifespan, because their lives matter.
Each of those laws that's named after an individual, there's a story behind it.
Absolutely.
And for this, you asked about bills this year. Leo's Law passed, and Leo's Law is requiring fentanyl information be distributed in schools. We've seen far too many fentanyl deaths in our state. Drug overdoses, horrible situations, and these families struggle. And we have had many individuals through the years reach out, and they grow frustrated with the process, mainly because they don't know how to navigate the Capitol and the procedures of how to get a law passed. And that's one of the main missions of OICA. We work with those individual advocates to help them navigate the process. We worked on a bill just a few years ago that would require driver's ed instructors provide a waiver for parents to sign, for the parent to understand that the vehicle will be operated by a student driver who is not licensed and still learning. We had a young lady who passed away from such an accident.
Oh, wow.
And her parents channeled their grief into getting a law passed to make sure other parents would at least have that knowledge. If they didn't think about it, this would be presented to them. Just be aware that your child's going to be in that vehicle with someone who's not trained. And so they can make that decision if they want to do one-on-one with just an instructor or the child through a different service, or they can go through what I did through school, where there were 3 students in the car and one adult instructor. And sometimes those distractions from the back seat can make that one moment difficult.
I had this extra break on the side too. Remember that? Luckily, I don't know if my instructor didn't have to use it too much, but there were a couple I rode with. I thought, oh my gosh, are we going to make it? Well, that's great. I know you have the Heroes Ball coming up. So tell us a little bit about that. You're honored.
You had the chance to come last year.
Yeah, it was lots of fun.
You were our People's Choice Individual Advocate of the Year for 2025.
Thanks to probably our listeners out there and all of our families who voted for me. So that was really shocking. I didn't think that would happen. We were just happy to attend, and Kirsten got to go and attend she loved all the games, by the way. So,
good.
Yeah, that was fun. But I love seeing other organizations and what they do and how they, do their fundraising, but also just talk about what they're doing to the general public and showcase, I think all these things matter. We all have to work together to make change. But tell us about the Heroes Ball coming up.
So when I came on board, we were very heavily grant driven. And the board wanted us to diversify and start raising more money. And me having been on the campaign trail so often, I was used to raising money for political campaigns. And so we created this gala called the Heroes Ball. So we will be celebrating the 10th year this year on July 25th. It's going to be at the Oklahoma City Farmers Market. That evening, we gather and celebrate the different heroes for children that our board designates. And then we have the 2 awards for the People's Choice for an individual and an organization. This year, we're honoring the memory of Clara Looper and the children of the Katz Drugstore sit-in for the efforts that they made as youngsters to try and improve race relations and break down segregation in Oklahoma. We're also going to recognize Carmelita Skeeter, who is the director of Indian Healthcare Resource Center in Tulsa. She has been working there for 50 years.
Wow.
And just keeps going stronger and stronger. We are also recognizing Pivot as our organization of the year. And then we honor 2 public servants who served in an office, but then dedicated work after that office to improving the lives of children. And this year, we're recognizing Labor Commissioner Leslie Osborne, as she's in her final year as Labor Commissioner, for the work that she did to help protect child labor laws in Oklahoma. And then we're honoring the memory of former U.S. Senator Fred Harris for the work that he did with civil rights, and certainly working with the tribal nations to raise awareness. In fact, he and Richard Nixon were polar opposites, and Nixon signed one of his bills into law when he was a U.S. Senator and stated he never thought he would see the day when he was supporting a Fred Harris bill. So many of these issues don't cross party lines.
Yeah.
They're for the good of the people. And so that's what we like to do with this organization, this banquet, and with our mission. Shed light on the good things, but also raise awareness on the things that need to change.
Absolutely. And I think that was, seeing all those awards and all those people there and your live auction, it's really a lot of fun. So I encourage everybody. We'll post a link on the podcast so people can go and buy a ticket to support you all for sure, because every little bit that you do, but gosh, Joe, it just seems like you have such a broad, perspective of everything that you do. How do you figure it out as the CEO? How do you go zone in and say you've got to focus on these 5 things? Like, what's your secret?
With the policy side, that comes from Fall Forum with the Children's Legislative Agenda. We truly take those ideas from everyday Oklahomans who care about children, and then our board will work with us to narrow down that legislative agenda, and then we work with the lawmakers to find out what will catch interest. And so not everything in the legislative agenda will move forward, but if we can move through some of those things, then that's the win that we look for every year. We don't get discouraged, because you just can't get everything done all at once, especially in the policy side. And so Fall Forum helps us create the legislative agenda. We work from November through the end of May working on those policies, and then work on those interim studies. We've got a fantastic board of directors. We have about 25 board members that meet every other month and go over the things that we work on. Our organization, our annual budget is about $780,000 with 7 employees. So none of us are getting rich. It truly is a nonprofit.
Right.
And so we're working.
Relate to that.
And then we try and offer those services to organizations like yours and other youth-serving organizations to help them focus on their mission and not the work at the Capitol, but also, like what you're doing with this podcast, educate and engage your listeners and viewers to make those calls to the Capitol.
I know, because we get asked this, they're scared to go or they don't know how to talk to their legislator. And I'm like, just take your kid up there and give them a one-pager and tell them your story. Like, just share your story. And that's really what it's about, because that's why it matters. It matters to you. Explain to them why it should matter to them. And, leave them with a note. Like, please think of our, child whenever you're thinking about people with disabilities. Because it's all encompassing. It's not just Down syndrome. We want to make sure all people with disabilities are evenly, have a playing field. That's why we work with the Autism Foundation so closely, because children with Down syndrome have a dual diagnosis as well. So, but yeah, I'm just so amazed by the work that you do, and thank you for what you do for children in the state of Oklahoma. I mean, it's truly inspiring. And anything you'd like to share about the future of your organization? What's lying ahead?
Well, one of our big projects that we love working on is called Kid Governor. We're the state affiliate for a program out of the Connecticut Democracy Project that provides free lesson plans to fifth grade teachers to educate their students about the job duties of elected officials and the importance of voting. There's no indoctrination that happens other than you need to become a registered voter when you turn 18, and you need to do your research to vote for the best people. The teachers can opt into an enhanced program where the kids get to do a classroom election. The students get to run for the office of Kid Governor. Whoever wins the classroom election submits a 2-minute video to OICA. Our board and the former governors of Oklahoma, David Walters, Brad Henry, Mary Fallon, and Frank Keating, and their spouses, the first ladies, they will go through and grade each of the videos. The top 7 finalists, we send back each of their videos along with a ballot that looks like the Oklahoma ballot with their names on it. And all the kids that participate in Kid Governor in the classroom get to vote on who they think the Kid Governor should be. Whoever wins the plurality gets to serve for a year. And then our program director works with those families all throughout the year to have those students go to civic organizations, come to the Capitol, deliver speeches, and try and engage young people to have a more effective voice.
I think that's great. Get them started early, get them engaged. That's awesome. Well, Joe, thanks so much. And as we wrap up today's conversation, we just want to remind everybody about our Down Syndrome Festival and 5K coming up on Saturday, September 26th. Joe, I hope you come and have a booth and tell everybody about what you're doing and share with our families.
Let me give some advice. I got a little bit of a sunburn, so wear your sunscreen if you're out there that day.
Yeah, it will be. Usually it is kind of warm, but we'll have our 5K and 1 mile fun run. And again, this is one of our biggest celebrations of the year. We usually have like 3,000 to 4,000 people that come out. And we have over 600 runners that come out and do our 5K and 1 mile fun run. So whether you're there to run, walk, volunteer, sponsor, or just come and enjoy the day, there's something for everyone. So again, that's dsfestival5k.com. So get registered to learn more. And Joe, thank you so much. We appreciate you being on our podcast. And anytime you need some help in the Down syndrome community, you let me know, because we will be there with our marching orders and telling us what we need to advocate for, because just like our children, we want them to be supported and included in the classroom and be a part of the community, because that's really where we know that they thrive the most. So
one last tip: Oklahoma children can register at the age of 17 and a half. That way they're not denied the right to vote when they turn 18 if they forget to register within that time frame.
Good to know. And our self-advocates can join that as well. My daughter is registered to vote, and she got her ID when she turned 18. That was her birthday present. So we went to get her just an ID to have, and she thinks it's her driver's license. But hey, but how many times they've had to use that? A lot. They've asked for her ID, and they're kind of shocked when I pass it on to her, but she signed her name and she registered to vote and gave her a thumbprint. So yeah, and we have some self-advocates that have their opinions. So absolutely, everybody, that's their civil right, their duty.
That's exactly right. Everybody has earned that right to vote if they're an American citizen, and we encourage them to register and voice their opinions through their vote at the ballot box.
So everybody go out and vote. You heard it from Joe Dorman. Thanks, everybody. Till next time. We'll see ya. Keep advocating. See ya. Bye.